Right, I see the recording has started, so we will get going. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling this meeting of the Public Safety Communications Task Force to order. It is 11:16 on February 18th, 2026, and I'm Barbara Neal. As a reminder, the meeting's being recorded and the recording will be posted to the task force webpage following the meeting. We'll start with our usual roll call of task force members. If you could verbally acknowledge your presence when I call your name. Dan Batesy.
Here.
Morning. Paul White.
Here.
Okay. Ron Kumitz.
Here.
Jim Mack.
Here.
Mike Dungis.
Here.
Morning. And I do not see Michael on the call. I didn't get a response for him, so I'm not sure if he's planning to attend or not, but we'll keep our eyes open for him. Also joining us today is Emily Mullaney from DPS as our administrative support, and our project management partners, Rick, Dom, and Elizabeth from Televate. Morning, everybody.
Morning.
And morning. From Mission Critical, we have Jason Malloy. Morning, Jason.
Morning. Phil's on also.
And Phil is also on. Good morning, Phil. Yep.
Good morning.
Depth and breadth of the note that she
I think we
wrote
have some
in my chart.
background noise
So,
going.
I
Somebody
feel
needs to
like
mute.
We should be.
Okay. We have several members of the, I think they're of the public, or a name I don't recognize. So I'll start with you, Matthew. If you could introduce yourself and any affiliation you care to share.
Glad to. Good morning. My name is Matt Gianquinto. I'm a systems sales director with EF Johnson, a land mobile radio vendor. I am, I think, a prior colleague of mine, Sharon Rousseau, had been following the activities of the task force. I'm returning to EF Johnson as a systems sales director covering the Northeast. So just interested in the work of this group and appreciate the opportunity to listen in this morning.
Okay, great. Thanks for that introduction. I appreciate it. Also joining us from the public is Chris Pedotti from Department of Public Safety. Morning, Chris.
Morning, Bob.
And we have Dean Gilmore from Addison County. Morning, Dean.
Good morning, all.
Okay, and I think I've covered everybody. So we'll go to approval of the agenda. That agenda was distributed to task force members by email. It's also available on the webpage. Any changes needed to the agenda today? Okay, we will consider it approved then and move on to approval of the minutes. We have two sets of minutes to approve. The regular meeting number 72 from February 4th and special meeting number 20 from February 11th. Are there any changes needed to, well, let's take this one by one. Are there any changes needed to the February 4th regular meeting minutes? Okay, I'll ask if there are any changes needed to the February 11th special meeting minutes. Okay, I think
Can I
it's
just
safe
make
to
a motion to approve both of them?
Yes,
Second, I'll second that. That's under Ron.
perfect. Any need for discussion or any discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving those two sets of minutes, raise your hand or signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Hands are up
Aye.
and the ayes are in and the minutes are passed or approved rather. Okay, so on to project updates from Televate. We'll start with Dom.
Thank you, Barb, and good morning, everyone. Before I get going, Barb, you may want to acknowledge, I believe I saw Senator Renner joining us.
Oh, okay, thank you. I'm not seeing her on my list actually, but I do see Kim Cheney. Oh, there you are. Good morning, Senator Renner. Good morning, Kim.
Good morning.
Okay, Dom, go right ahead.
All right, thanks. Project updates. Televate has been supporting the task force by reviewing the draft legislation that was identified to support the task force, and we have had a number of meetings regarding that. We have also we had a information request on many of the presentation materials that had been used at the working group. We prepared all of those, a couple of dozen or so, and thanks to Elizabeth for her help with that, and Emily for getting them posted or sent off to where they had to go. Also, per the last meeting, the last regular meeting, we discussed further the LMR concept with statewide simulcast cells, and there was a request to look at potential criteria for identifying potential pilot projects for that. We have, within Televate, have developed some draft criteria, and we're looking for some outside input on that as well. So we're scheduling a couple of meetings to get further input. So while we aren't necessarily prepared to report on that today, we hope to in a subsequent meeting.
Okay, great. That sounds good. Thank you, Dom. Jason, anything for Mission Critical this morning?
No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Okay, that brings us to discussion of the commissioner's email, her recommendations and opinion. I'm hopeful that everyone has had an opportunity to review and consider Commissioner Morrison's recommendations to the House GovOps and Military Affairs Committee regarding our recommendations, specifically the proposed governance structure. Unfortunately, the commissioner is not able to be here today. I understand she's testifying on another topic, but I think her message is stated clearly enough that we can discuss it without her here. As a reminder, House GovOps has asked us to consider the commissioner's comments as we respond to the draft legislation that they sent over to us, I believe last week. It was last week. Or perhaps the week before. Now I've lost track of time. In any event, that draft legislation. I would like to start by going around to each task force member for their thoughts and opinions and input on the commissioner's email, including whether you think there should be any changes to the response on our draft legislation. And any other thoughts that you may have on that. I will tell you that Paul and Dan and I had a chance to discuss some of this, so we're not going to start. I'm going to put Ron on the spot and see if he would be willing to share his input on the commissioner's message.
So the commissioner went into a lot of detail. And my one very basic thought is that we're trying to build a structure that is sort of owned by the stakeholders, and if we incorporate the governance structure of what we're doing into any other body, then we are going. I think that within the first responder community, whether it's non-state law enforcement or fire EMS, we are just immediately going to lose credibility. I think that there's a significant amount of distrust in those areas and those communities with state agencies in general. I have to say that under the commissioner's leadership, the Department of Public Safety has become much more fire and EMS friendly, but that has not been the case in the past, and it may or may not be that way in the future going forward. And I think that if we're going to build something here, it needs the ownership needs to be with the stakeholders. I'm not going to beat that horse any further dead.
Okay, I hear what you're saying, and thank you for those comments, Ron. Jim Mack, can we go to you?
I've gotten the same feedback from a number of agencies around my area that they would like to still see it independent. It goes back to the history of the formation of the 911 board. At that time, they didn't want 911 board to have any say on the dispatch side of it. And some of those feelings are still out there across the state. I think we'd be making a mistake, as Ron said, we'd lose some credibility here.
So just to clarify, am I hearing there's support for the current recommendation, which is like a new
Yes.
independent board? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Jim. Mike Dungis, you're next.
I don't have any particular comments. I hear the concern about making sure we have appropriate representation, and I think that's super valuable. Building trust, this has been a long process, and I don't want the process to collapse because we don't have the proper representation. So I do think that is worthy of consideration, and I see the value. I also understand that overloading the amount of people that we have representing this moving forward can be challenging. Being on a couple of boards and commissions throughout the state, the too many cooks challenge can be real if you don't have good leadership in place. So I think we have to rely on making sure that leadership has both. If we're going to have those extra cooks, so to speak, that the leadership of the board, commission, the organization has a good, strong leader in place, and that they can gather all of the feedback and use it effectively. I know that seems to be innocuous at best, but my hope is that we can do this in a way that all voices can be heard and do it efficiently. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, who do we have left? Michael, did Michael join us? Michael Wright? Not yet. Okay, so Paul and Dan, Paul, why don't we've gotten input from everyone else. You want to share your thoughts?
Sure. So, I share the concerns that Ron and Jim brought forward. I think when I served on the governance working group, along I think with Mike Dungis and Dan Batesy, and we talked a fair amount about that. Wanting to make sure that this governance body, whatever it looks like, has credibility among the stakeholders. And if it is just another arm of whoever, the Department of Public Service, or name a department, that is going to not have the same level of buy-in as it would under the structure that we proposed. Going through the commissioner's message, I'll try to just focus on what's productive and going to be helpful with advancing this. My biggest concern is that, she was critical of our recommended governance model. Somewhere she said it was a grave mistake or something along those lines, putting that kind of authority into an independent board, which is made up of volunteers. But then she turns around and one of her recommendations is to put it under the control of the E911 board, which is a independent board made up of volunteers. I get the bit about creating more positions, extra level of bureaucracy, expanding government. I get all that. I agree with all that. However, our discussions in the governance working group were that, the E911 board is not currently prepared to take this on. They don't have the resources to take it on. They don't necessarily have the will to take it on right now. It would be necessary to get this off the ground, get the legs underneath it, get the bugs worked out, with the understanding that there would be a sunset. This would be a limited duration thing, and that in a number of years, whether it's 3 years or 5 years or whatever the magic number is, whenever it's ready, that it could then, if the E911 board is willing to take it on, then the two could be merged. and have just one independent board rather than two parallel, some would say redundant boards. And I guess I'd still stand by that belief that that I think that's the best way to go. And I think, we can acknowledge the commissioner's concerns, but my opinion is we should stand by our original recommendation.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. Yeah, and adding that sunset into the draft language is something we could do too, as a placeholder for when we get to specifically looking at the language. Dan, how about you?
Yeah, well, thank you, Barb. I don't think it's a secret that I've opposed an independent board for many of the same reasons that the commissioner laid out in her email as well. So I won't reiterate all of those over again. I have been and am willing to find consensus here. I'm more comfortable with the notion of including a sunset and a more defined plan for how we move this forward. My objection still stands. I think that again, I think our issues here are that it's creating a duplicate committee, that we're overtaxing folks from the stakeholder groups, and that's creating potential challenges as we go forward. But like I said, I'm willing to find consensus, especially if we can include a little bit more robust language around sunset.
Okay, and actually another, well, let me add my thoughts. So I kind of had three takeaways from the commissioner's message. One was that, well, as Paul pointed out, sort of the statement that an independent board can't do it or shouldn't do it, but then turning around and recommending that it go to the 911 board, which is in fact an independent board. So there was that observation. And I also noted that she discussed the potential for an advisory board to the Department of Public Safety as an option as well, citing the fact that some of our neighboring states do exactly that. So those were my observations. And I agree. I agree that the task force doesn't need to change its recommendations. It sounds like there's consensus on that the recommendations, maybe with some fine tuning, should stand. And I think it was either Dan or Paul that mentioned that the 911 board is not ready to, hold up its hand and say, we'll take this on at this point. So I can't commit the board to accepting those responsibilities. Though I will share, there's been no formal vote from the board, but there has been discussion, and some of the concerns that are mentioned even in the commissioner's email were discussed. Things like growth of government and other comments related to, more specifically, to the funding proposal and so on. So with all of that being said, I like the idea of adding a sunset for two reasons. It gets to the concerns about having this longstanding new group. It also would get to the budgetary concern that the commissioner expressed, because we have the funding with the task force, well, assuming the legislature gives us the authority to spend it on this, to stand that group up for 3 years, I believe it is. And I would think that a 3-year time period would give them an opportunity to make some progress where there could then be a decision about whether to merge with the 911 board, or perhaps this new entity finds another direction that this should go at that point. So so it sounds to me like we're kind of all in agreement here. Paul or Dan, what have I missed?
I don't know that you've missed anything.
Okay.
It'll have to be a tactfully crafted response to both address the draft legislation as well as the commissioner's concerns, but no, I think you covered it.
So the
Yeah, I
one
would
thing
agree.
that the one thing that I will point out is that while I am in principle, I have no objection to the sunset concept. I think that the timeline, I think that the timeline that's outlined for portions of the work that's going on, like specifically like a lot of the land mobile stuff, extend beyond 3 years, and I'd like to see that sunset pushed out to incorporate a significant amount of that, because I think that the first responder community is really banking on that. That's as far as they're concerned, that's a good portion of the bang for their buck. I mean, the dispatching thing it's important to them, whether they want to think about it or not, it is. But I think that what they really want to see is some progress in the land mobile arena. And if we pull the legs out from under it before the group has gotten to that, then I think it's not in anybody's best interest.
I
What
would
is-
offer, Barb, just that I think the sunset should apply just to the governance, not the overall project work. And I think if we can make that distinction clear, that will ameliorate some of Ron's concerns. And I would happen to agree with him. I think we should be very careful about setting specific timelines for some of the bigger and broader complex projects.
Okay, I'll probably need help wording that, but we can work on that. Mike Dunn, just go ahead.
Yeah, I think Dan said it pretty well. The idea of a sunset is great because it allows for those, as I was saying, those continued voices to be heard from the community. It allows us to specifically address the needs of governance in the regional dispatch space. And if in the end this becomes part of the 911 board, or maybe the whole thing gets renamed, I think once the vision is set and it's a new set of instructions, then this doing it the way we've kind of prescribed allows for that to be done without the bias of another organization. Not to say anything negative about the 911 board, but they operate in a certain way, have operated in a certain way, and it allows this to be an independent process. And then now we have those processes coming together later. So I do think that a sunset, date to be defined or strategy to be defined once the work has been done to X level or whatever it happens to be, both addresses some of the commissioner's concerns of no duplication and expansion of government, yet allows this to still be an independent and clean process. So.
Okay. I'm wondering too, if it would be nice to have the commissioner here to see if these would address some of her concerns, but I think we can have that conversation afterwards. All right. So with all of that said, I think it makes sense to move on to discussion and finalization of our response to the draft legislation. Does everybody agree? Okay. All right. So let me share that screen, my screen. Okay. This is the document that got sent out after our meeting last week. There are still a few things we have to make a decision on. Before I get too far into it, here's my thought on how we approach this. Let's work within these comments today, and then when we're done, I can take one final look at this, maybe take the comments out and put them into a separate document, that says at line 8, page whatever, this is what we'd recommend. I don't know if that's easier for the committee to review, or if they prefer to have the comments, in line in the document. But and then this response or addressing the commissioner's email would be a separate response as well that I think we could work on, we meaning the chairs and the vice chair, and then circulate among ourselves if the task force is comfortable with that, and go from there. But anyway, I'm rambling on a bit here. So let's start with addressing the draft language. So comment number 1 refers to line 13 on page 1, that it's removing the words within the Department of Public Safety, because as we've discussed, this is meant to be, or proposed to be, an independent state board not attached to any other agency or department. And then we give the examples of potential language for creating such an entity. Moving to the next comment, interrupt me if any of this needs to be fine-tuned, but I think we decided on most of this last week. Moving to line 16 on page 1, I've replaced all of their language with the list of memberships, the membership list that was developed in the working group. There is an outstanding question that we need to finalize today regarding the chair and vice chair question. So the draft language came to us from the legislature identifying the executive director of the Enhanced 911 Board as the chair. So we could support that or another legislative decision. We could ask that the governor initially appoint the chair, or we could actually, there's those two. And then we had a public comment last week that the chair should be a member of the existing task force in order to ensure continuity. So let's have a little discussion about that. I agree with that last the comment that came from the public that it should be a task force member. I am not, it doesn't matter to me if it's the executive director of the board or another existing task force member. So what do others think? And I can't really see hands, so.
I don't mind volunteering you.
Who said that? Jim. Right. Do you agree, though, it should be a task force member?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree with that.
okay. Mike Dungis? Oops, if you're talking.
Barbara, you can move on from me. I'll be back in a second. Sorry.
Okay, all right, okay.
Barb, this is Paul.
Yeah, Paul.
I'm fine with any of those options. I would say the one option that I'm not comfortable with, which I think maybe we had ruled out last time, was just having the group elect its own chair from within. It's, let the group choose its own leader. I think it part of the commissioner's concern, and I think if this is going to be an executive branch entity, I think the governor has to have some level of oversight. So whether the governor appoints the chair or whether it's the director of the 911 board, which reports to the chair of the 911 board, which is appointed by the governor. Some way there's got to be a follow the line back to the governor.
Right.
But which one of these options, I don't have a preference.
Okay. Okay. All right. And Dan, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Paul pretty much said what I was thinking, which is I think there does have to be an executive level line drawn, and I'm comfortable with any of the suggestions in that context.
Okay, so we have both things. We have it should be a task force member, and we have it should have an executive line, right? So that pretty much narrows it down. Thank you. Or Jen thanks you, or Dan.
Well, the executive line could be the governor appoints it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
The governor appoints
it
it
be a member of the executive branch.
Right.
I see that. Okay.
The governor appoints it, and this is the pool of people he can choose from, which happens to be, at least one former task force member in there.
Okay, so tell me how to word this. The chair should be Appointed by the governor?
from existing task force members.
All right. Paul, looks like they're lining you up.
Oh, no. You're still in that group, Barb.
I know. The chair should be appointed by the governor from the existing task force membership, right?
Yes.
Anybody
Yeah.
disagree?
No, should we take some time to emphasize? I guess we don't need to, but emphasize why that's so important to carry kind of the institutional knowledge of the work that we've been doing. Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Based on 2.5 years of work, right?
Yeah, I just think, what if, people are mortal, what if it's just not possible? What if I move to North Carolina and Barb retires? I mean, what if we can't commit the existing 7 members of this task force to doing this into infinity? So I'm not sure what.
Could we say the initial chair?
Yeah.
Initially, the
Yes,
chair.
Yes, initially.
Okay.
I think that's a great idea. Yep.
Initially, the chair should be appointed by the governor from the existing task force membership to
Yes.
carry forward the institutional knowledge, blah, blah, blah. I can add some more words around that.
Yeah.
Do we want to add anything about moving forward after that, or is this just, or maybe the governor would continue to appoint based on recommendations that come up from this group?
I don't think you need to go further than that, Barb. I think you just say,
Okay,
leave it at that.
okay, all right. Okay, let's see, what else do we have to complete in here? So the next item is confirm the appropriate fire associations are listed. So we have, or should it be Vermont State Firefighters Association and is it the Vermont Career Fire Chiefs?
I would give that question to Dean Gilmore. He's lurking in the background somewhere.
Dean?
Yes, Barb, I would include the career chiefs. That covers all of the career departments in the state, so.
Whoops, let me fix that abbreviation. Vermont State Firefighters Association and the Vermont Career Fire Chiefs.
Chiefs, yes.
And there's no association after that.
Well,
Okay.
there is, they got the PFFB, which is the career fire departments. But you're including more because your career fire chiefs cover those departments.
Okay, but I have the title of the group correct, Vermont Career Fire Chiefs.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Anybody disagree with that? Good, sounds like, okay. Okay, and then we had a public comment last week suggesting that a House and Senate appointee be added to the membership list. Task force, what say you about that?
I don't know if is that standard? I mean, is there a similar condition for the 911 board, or?
There is not.
I don't have a particular objection to that. But yeah, I don't know.
You see a lot of, well, I guess I think the person that made that suggestion is with us, and so is a former senator. Maybe they could shed some light on that. I think I've seen a lot of summer study committees that are set up that way. I don't know about long-term boards like this.
Kim Cheney, I believe you were the one that made this recommendation. Do you want to add anything here about why you think this is a good idea?
All right. This sort of goes along with the commissioner's
recommendations, but my basic feeling is that you need to, the legislature is going to decide what happens in the long run, not a voluntary board. And they should be a part of it to begin with, and it would be educational as time goes on to have a representative or a senator who is well versed in the issues that you're dealing with. I mean, to me, it's inseparable from, I don't want to stray beyond my license of what I can talk about, but the original proposal of all stakeholders running the show is a recipe for total failure, because this doesn't just affect the stakeholders, it affects the whole state, which has a huge variety of concerns about all of this. And from personal experience with Central Vermont, that whole regionalization cratered because the issues of governance are central to this whole operation. And governance to be effective is going to have to be spread out amongst various constituencies, not just the stakeholders. Because otherwise you just have the chickens watching the hen house. And this is a broader problem than that.
Okay.
Thank you for listening.
Yep, thank you. And I've made a note here that your thoughts are this is allow, the Senate and House representation would allow an education piece and result in legislative members that are well versed in the issues as they'll be taking action moving forward. Senator Renner, do you have anything to add on this point? If you're speaking, you're
Yes.
muted.
Okay, thank
Yes.
you.
Yeah, go ahead.
My feeling is similar to the comment made earlier about the institutional memory. If I were to get back in the Senate and I am running again, I might be valuable on the board, but I don't know if anybody else has been paying close attention to these issues. I would hope they are, but I also know that the workloads are daunting of these, quote, part-time legislators.
Okay.
So it gives me pause to recommend adding them to a board like this, much as I think the input might be valuable, as Kim said.
Okay, so you would not, you don't especially recommend adding them?
I don't especially recommend adding them, no.
Okay, okay, okay. So let me just make that note. Okay, so task force members. Thoughts on where we want to go with this?
I hear Kim's rationale and I don't disagree with it. I think he makes some excellent points. I'm hesitant for the reasons that Senator Renner just said, is that I'm not overly confident that the speaker and that the committee of committees would give us somebody who is well-versed, has an interest, going to jump in and be an active participant and take information back to their body as a result of our work. I'd like to think that would happen, but I'm not overly confident that it would happen. And then my second concern is just the overall size of the body.
Yeah.
And we've already been criticized for being too large of a group.
Yeah.
And now we're talking about adding two more.
That was one of my concerns as well. I mean, I think you can make a case really either way. Anything else from task force members?
I mean, the first word that came to my mind was dilution. I think this is potentially one of those too many cooks thing. And then I would say that in addition to Senator Renner's comments about, institutional memory, and that I agree that we're not likely to get somebody who is in really invested in what this organization, this entity is doing, and is going to put the time into understanding it and all that kind of stuff. So I have to say that I would definitely not add those additional members.
Okay. So it sounds like there's three of us anyway that are not fully on board with this. Should we leave that out? Wasn't in our original list.
I would leave it out.
Thank you, Jim.
If the sponsor of the bill or the legislature as a whole wants to add it in, they certainly will do that.
Yes, that is true. So, okay, we will leave this recommendation out. Tell me now if you object to that, task force members. Okay.
No, I do
All right.
not.
All right. Okay. Let me get that posted. Not wanting to go naturally. Let's make sure we're saving this, and I believe my screen is locked up. Let me stop sharing for a minute. Yes, my screen is locked. Hold on while I unlock.
You aren't sharing anymore, Barb, from our perspective. So
I was not, or
you are no longer sharing now.
right. Yeah,
Okay.
boy, I don't want to lose these comments. Of course, I'll have the recording, won't I? Okay, I think we're back. Sorry about that. It seems to have shaped up. So let me go back to sharing. Ugh. All right. So we can see that comment posted here. So moving on then to the next comment, which was two things here. One was to give this new entity the authority to hire an executive director and additional staff. We could include from the working group, they had identified like two liaisons, right? Technical and administrative liaisons. We could add that language from the working group recommendation. Any objection to that? Kate? Let's see if I can. Okay. And then also Rick had made the observation that there was nothing related to LMR in the board authority and duties, and recommended the language that you see on your screen there. So comments, objections, additions to this section? All right.
Large that recommendation, because I cannot see it.
Oh, the one for LMR?
Yeah. Yes.
I don't know. Can I enlarge it?
Can you just hit zoom on, like on Office there?
Oh, Ron, you have no idea
It's-
what you're asking
it's-
here.
Lower, right there where
It's-
your cursor is. There you go. That's it.
Sage.
Is
Say
that
it's short
better?
enough, you can probably just
scored.
read it.
Does that work, Ron?
Yes, it does.
Are you happy with that language, Ron, or?
Yes. I mean, at the risk of adding too much to it. Sometimes being a tiny bit vague can offer options, whereas being too specific could, hog tie the entity.
This feels vague enough to me, right? Or vague is maybe not a good word, but broad enough.
Slightly ambiguous.
All right. Any objections, or we can add this as is?
I'm for adding it as is.
Okay, Jim, and I
Same.
saw Dan's head nodding, and I
Yep.
hear Mike, and okay. All right. Moving on then. Last week we had, get this out of the way. I don't know if you're seeing the participant list, but anyway, last week we had a comment that at line 7 on page 3, we should add the words as those gaps directly pertain to public safety communications regarding the cell coverage gap data. I think we had agreed on that last week. Any changes? Okay. We had talked last week about adding a definition or recommending the addition of a definition of dispatch center. And I'm pretty sure it was Dom and Paul worked together to come up with this definition, which, if you can't see it well, says a dispatch center is a facility that receives 911 calls transferred from one of the Vermont PSAPs and dispatches first responder personnel. A dispatch center may also receive emergency calls for service directly from a caller or from emergency service personnel in the field. The dispatch center may be a separate facility or co-located within or with the PSAP. Everybody good with that?
Yeah, I think that if you can't figure out what a dispatch center is after reading that, then you just need to pack it up and go home.
What you're saying, Ron, is it's clear.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, good.
Yes, it is.
Unambiguous.
Okay. Unambiguous. Yes. All right. Nothing more. We'll consider that approved or acceptable to send back. Then we, in the next comment, added a definition of dispatch services. So that came in as public safety dispatch services provide for the dispatching of public safety personnel to incidents requiring assistance to protect or preserve public safety. That definition works for me.
Not to be nitpicky, but isn't defining dispatching with the word dispatching somewhat I don't know what the right word is, but it's like
Circular
see where
logic.
I'm going with this? Yeah, it's
Yes.
like
Yes.
circular logic, right?
So how about public safety dispatch services serve
Notification.
to direct, do they direct public safety personnel to incidents? Notify.
Notified.
Okay.
Notification.
Provide for the, all right, so change dispatching. Whoops, we got some background noise going again, to notification. So it will then say public safety dispatch services provide for the notification of public safety personnel. It wouldn't be 2 incidents anymore. It would be notification of public safety personnel of incidents, right?
I would say of incidents and specific needs for I don't know. I might go into a little bit more detail there.
How about this? Change it to notification to public safety personnel of incidents requiring. And what else did you want to add there?
How about a response by by emergency personnel or something like that.
So we're gonna notification to public safety personnel of incidents requiring a
Response.
sorry.
Yeah.
Yep, response by public safety. Yeah, response, period.
Yes.
Right.
Okay. Okay, everybody good with that?
I don't want to make this definition too long, but I mean, there's a lot more that goes into dispatching than just
Yeah.
sending people to the scene. I mean, there's so much communication back and forth that goes on in an event, and maybe that's not technically dispatching, but the conversations between a dispatcher and a person at the scene goes on, as you know, as everybody here knows, goes on for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not just the initial notification.
I
What
just
about
had a
an
little
ad?
hit of
Go ahead.
heartburn as
Notification.
well, along with what Paul's talking about. I think, first of all, I'd ask the question, why do we need to define it here? Secondly, I'd state that when we define it here, we potentially run into the problem of not defining it fully enough, as we've run into problems like in EMS, where we've talked about what EMS is and defining it. I'm a little nervous that we're going down that road. If we don't define it properly and expansively enough, are we potentially limiting us legally?
Oh, boy. And
Yeah,
Ron, I think you, go ahead, Paul.
I was just going to say, I'm the one who initially raised this issue of not having a definition, and I'm happy with having a definition of dispatch center, and would be perfectly fine with scrapping the definition of dispatch services, if that's where everybody wants to go.
I
Right,
would go with that.
Okay, Jim, you agree with that? And Ron,
Yeah,
I
I do
think you
too.
were trying to say something.
Yeah, I was going to expand on that a little bit, but I think that in the big picture, we're better off just ditching it.
Okay. Mike Dungis?
Yeah, I think it makes sense that allows us to broaden the scope if we need to in the future. It doesn't lock us in. I think Dan's point is pretty clear.
All right. Remove the definition. Done. Okay. Next comment was in line 15. We agreed to strike out the word classifications because it has specific meaning in the labor world. I added this comment, I think, after our meeting as I was going through this, because I came across this word reclassification. If we take out classification, don't we need to take out reclassification? And what would we replace it with? What are we trying to say here?
I think this relates to classifying, from my vantage point, classifying dispatchers as first responders. Ultimately, that's the goal that dispatchers want.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we talked about. So
The question now is, do we want to jump into that on day one, or do we want this future board to fight that battle?
I think you're wading into very murky water here, because as I've said many times before, classification means something very specific if you are a state employee, and it does not mean the same thing that you're intending to get to here.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And that's why it's something that I think the future board may want to discuss.
Yeah.
Dan, could you suggest a more appropriate word?
Yeah, I mean, I think you could say certification. I think you could say
Could you say conduct? Conduct, like establish uniform position descriptions and standards for professional conduct. Sounds weird too.
Operation.
Professional categorization. Yeah, maybe that's even a little tricky. Or perhaps just leave it loose and say something like just establish uniform position descriptions and standards.
You could even say professional standards.
Yeah.
To get
Yes.
back to Jim's original statement, I think what the dispatchers want to see is that we're behind the idea of I hesitate to use this dicey word, is classifying them as first responders. So I think that we might want to encapsulate that idea somehow in this document, because I think that is potentially critical in gaining their support.
Jason suggested in the comments designation. So,
Yeah, I like that.
So how about establish uniform position descriptions and professional standards and standards in support of professional designation, in support of, maybe, I don't know if we're ready to take a in support of position right now, right? Or maybe not all of us are.
But I think that there's that maybe an additional line here. We're going to establish uniform standards and all that other stuff, and we're going to designate dispatchers as first responders or something. I think making that very clear is I don't find that to be risky, and I think that it's a small win for that group whose support we need.
Rick or Dom, was there a recommendation along the way from the working groups or the full task force that dispatchers, emergency communications personnel be designated as first responders? I mean, has that discussion happened in this task force, and was there consensus based on what we've already done? I'm not remembering.
I don't think we had consensus on this. I think we danced around the issue, and that's why this line is in here as it is.
My recollection is that the working group did support reclassification. However, as Dan previously stated, we changed the word reclassification to I would go back and look at the language, but we did change the term reclassification to professional consideration, or what I think was what Jason put up there, designation, makes sense. Also, Dom did share with us that there was some independent efforts going on being led by the Vermont Emergency Dispatch Association to also advance a public safety consideration, designation as public safety. So there is an effort, I believe, ongoing.
They were talking about it yesterday. I think it was Senate. One of the Senate committees was talking about it yesterday. So there may be a bill. Again, it's not that I object to the notion of it. I just think that we have to be very careful about the language we use.
Yeah, I'm reviewing the working group recommendations, and it does say, promote we use the term reclassification of telecommunicators as first responders / professionals.
it looks like Dean has a comment.
Okay, well, thank you, Emily. Dean, would you like to add to this?
Yeah, I would just wonder what this has to do with the communication system, statewide communication system that we're trying to set up. And I also know that there is a move to make this happen, but there's other things to consider, because we have a line of duty death benefit that would put another group of people under that eligibility for that program. And that just keeps everybody and their brother is trying to get into that program. And there's not a lot of money there to help that. That was started back in the early 2000s by Vermont State Firefighters Association. And we just keep adding and adding and adding. But this has nothing to do with establishing a statewide communication system.
Okay. That's good context. How about establish uniform position descriptions and standards for professional designation and leave it at that? It is, the bill that's out there right now specifically talks about providing workers' comp coverage for dispatchers, emergency communications folks, specifically for post-traumatic stress disorder. And so, like, I personally am fully in support of that, but I know that there are other things that are like to be considered, like the cost of all of those things. So,
And Dean is right. There are other things such as the death, but I don't think any of the stuff that the dispatchers were pushing related to the death benefit. It had to do with retirement, had to do with just job classification itself, and the workman's comp issues related to stress.
Chris,
Yeah, it specifically mentions training and mental health support.
Chris in the comments has given us the first responder bill under consideration is S306.
Yes, yeah, I have it. I have it right here.
I guess my question would be, if there's already a bill in the legislature going through, do we need to add language in this document?
I kind of feel like we would be opening up a bigger can of worms, and I don't mean to be disrespectful of that issue, but a bigger, broader topic than we might want to be handling here, which is really to Dean's point, right? What if we just say establish uniform position descriptions and professional standards, period? And then if someone wants to use this in support of the broader discussion of designating communications personnel as first responders, they can say, see, they've got uniform position descriptions and professional standards. What do you think?
I can accept that.
Who else has an opinion?
I'm fine with that. I think if there is a bill working its way through the legislature on this topic, I don't think essentially what we're debating here is whether or not to put this issue under the control of this new governance board.
Right.
And if the matter's being delayed at the legislative level, I don't think we want to sort of insert this issue into the duties of this new board if it's already being debated at a higher level.
Right.
And there's no statewide, like this isn't, there's no statewide classification of a dispatcher. You know, you're classified at each individual organization that you work for.
Right.
I mean, unless you make one, this is a moot issue.
Well, I think ultimately this board will create the standard, and then that reclassification would have to be built off from that standard.
Right.
So I typed up what I think I'm hearing in the
Yes.
comment here. It says change this line 15 and 16 to establish uniform position descriptions and professional standards. Period.
Yes.
Okay. All right. I'm seeing
Good,
some
good.
nods. All
Yep.
right. Excellent. Okay. Ooh, that was a tough one. All right. Moving on. Last week we agreed to, at line 2 on page 4, revise this sentence so that it says implementing a new multidisciplinary computer-aided dispatch system that is capable of blah, blah, blah. Capable of, hold on, maybe I shouldn't have said blah, blah, blah just yet. Capable of interacting. Do I want interacting? I want interfacing. Right? I think I just wrote this down incorrectly.
I think you want interfacing, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
interfacing with, rest of the sentence goes on, and then at line 4, we wanted to change it to line 4. So systems, broadcast alert systems, and external applications.
Application.
Okay. All right, we got that fixed. Any other comments on this, or can I move on? Okay. I guess this is a question for the legislature, but we would like this entity to have the authority to direct where those funds go, correct? Where the existing funds go.
The funds that are already appropriated, right?
Right.
Yes.
Okay. And then finally, another question, I believe, for the legislature is there a mechanism where the task force can get authority to spend some of the funds in support of the proposed projects? Specifically, I think we're talking here about right now about Rapid SOS and CAD, right? Potentially CAD. And so could we get authority to move those things forward even while this bill is being considered? And I don't know how to make that happen, so we'll just pose the question. Okay. Let me, Dean, I see your hands up again. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's many times that a bill is left that it goes into effect as soon as it's passed and signed by the governor. So you wouldn't have to wait until July of 2026. You wouldn't have to wait till the 1st.
Okay. Okay. I wondered about that.
Yeah.
And if something happens and this whole thing, doesn't make it out of committee or isn't going to make it through the system, maybe we go back and ask for that limited task force authority to make those couple of things happen, right? Rapid SOS and the CAD piece.
Yeah.
But right now we'll
through some other route. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop sharing now so I can finally see you again. Whoops. Okay. All right. So I will take a stab at, well, let me ask you this. Do you like the idea of sending it back to the legislature with the comments in the document, or should I create a whole separate document and just say, actually, let's ask Senator Renner how they prefer to see it, right? Should we have a separate document that says page 3, line 20, do this? Or should we send them a document that essentially links to the same location with our information? Senator, do you have an
My preference
opinion?
is to have that menu, right? Just to have one list that everybody at a glance could see. That's
Okay.
my personal preference, but I think anybody
Okay.
on the committee might have a different opinion.
Okay. So you'd like to, if you had your druthers, you'd like to see it in one document with the comments on the side?
Yeah.
Okay. What others think? Doesn't matter.
I would think if we send back the same format that they sent us, but with track changes on for whatever we edited in the comments in the column, should make it pretty clear what we're recommending.
Okay.
That shows all the strike throughs and all the additions.
Okay. So here's what I'll do. I'll go back and do that because I know there's some places where I don't have track changes on in the document, right? But I'll go back in and do that so that it's clearer. And circulate. I think if the task force is comfortable with it, I could circulate to Dan and Paul to make sure I haven't missed anything. Maybe Rick and Dom can do a sanity check for us also.
Yeah, we can also take support you on this. When you're working on it, we could do the first draft or however you want us to support it. We can, I mean, that's what we're
Okay.
here for. So we could create the first draft for your review, and then we could refine it together and then pass it on to Dan and Paul for their consideration before passing it on to the full task force. However you want to do it, we're here to help you.
Okay, thank you, Rick.
And then this document would be attached to an email that addresses the commissioner's concerns?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I can draft and get to the same group, Paul, Dan. I guess the question ultimately is does the task force want the chairs and the vice chair to advance this on their behalf, or do we need another meeting to vote on the final product. And if we do, we need it way quick, because I think we should be getting these comments back to them by Friday. So we might even be past our.
Yeah, I would suggest, I mean, I've heard consensus here on just about everything. I
Yeah.
would recommend that we don't try to do an extra meeting. I think that's just an artificial impediment.
Okay.
I do too.
Okay, I just want to make sure everybody's comfortable with it, and be assured that it won't just be me trying to put all these thoughts together. I will get input from those that can most help. So, all right, sounds like
Hey,
we're good with that.
Barb, could I revisit? I just wanted to, I was pulling up the file that was sent, the legislative, the more detailed report. And regarding the designation of telecommunicators as public safety, the task force did make a recommendation. The task force additionally recommends Vermont's 911 call takers and dispatchers, collectively referred to as telecommunicators, be provided access to the benefits of the first responder community and designate it as public safety first responder professionals. So I wanted to, I pull it up. I wanted to see, I knew we had said something, and I just wanted to, I didn't want to leave the meeting without sharing that's what the task force had provided to the legislature.
So that came out of the working group and was sent to the legislature in the recommendations.
Yes, it was.
Okay. So here's my thought on that. I think they can be two separate issues, right? So we have that recommendation, so we could speak, the task force could speak in support of that as other bills are making their way through, perhaps. I don't know that it has to be in essentially our or the next group's enabling legislation.
Yeah, I don't prescribe anything. I just wanted to share with you what we had provided to the legislature.
Right.
I think the wording that we have right now is good.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, we're already on the record as supporting that statement that Rick just read. I don't think it needs to be in the legislation that creates this new governing body.
Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Sorry
Okay.
to take us backwards on that one.
No, that's okay.
It's okay.
All right, I've lost track now of my agenda, so let's see where we are.
Public
Okay.
comment?
We are at public comment. So, Dean, do you have anything further you'd like to add?
I don't. I think you guys are doing a great job, and I would like to say thank you to everybody that's put all this time into it. And unfortunately, I do have to leave. I have a meeting in Rutland in an hour or so.
Okay, well,
Thank
thank
you.
you for being here and for your input as well.
You're
Thank you.
very welcome.
Okay, Chris Pedoti, how about you?
I'm good, Barb. Thank you very much.
All right. I'm going in no particular order, as you can tell. Senator Renner.
I just wondered if we'd had an update from the Commissioner of Public Safety anytime recently about the amount of correctionally directed spending that is left out of the $9 million. I thought that was a requirement of Act 87, Section 49, that we get some regular updates as a task force.
We will have to take that comment back and look into it.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I can get something for the next meeting.
Okay, great.
I don't think there's been any substantive changes from the last, whatever the last was, but I'll be glad to update that.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, Kim Cheney.
Thank you. I think Commissioner Morrison has accurately stated the problem with the composition of the board, and they're excellent suggestions, and I hope you would follow through on them.
Okay, thank you for that. Matthew, anything to add?
Oh, no, thank you. Just glad to listen in.
Okay. Well, you're really part of the team here, but I'll count it for public comment. Phil or Jason, you have anything to add? Not today.
Yep. No, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. All right then. Looks like I covered everybody, and we'll move on now to new business. Is there any new business for today? Hearing nothing. I'll confirm the next meeting date. We are on the books. Oops, this note says today's date. So we are on the books for March 4th. March 4th at 11:15. If there's a need for something sooner than that, we'll certainly reach out. But otherwise, there's nothing else. I think we could look for a motion to adjourn.
Before we adjourn, can I just make a note on that meeting?
Yes.
As I will no longer be in the employ of the city of Rutland and therefore no longer a representative of the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, I will be leaving you all as this is probably my last meeting. So thank you very much for the opportunity to participate. I'm not sure who they'll put in my place. I'll be calling Ted this afternoon to find out. But I've appreciated the work, and I will likely pop in every once in a while in future meetings just to see and get updates because I'm a geek like that and I care. So
well, Mike, thank you very much, and we hope you do pop into the meetings, and certainly thank you for all your work on this for the past 2.5 years. We were glad to have you here, and good luck in your next venture.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. I enjoyed working with all of you. So it's been fun.
Likewise.
Thank you, Mike.
I'll move to adjourn.
Yeah, thanks, Mike, and good luck.
Thanks, Tom.
And his last act is to move to adjourn. Seconded
Thanks,
by Jim. Okay. All right. All in favor of adjourning, raise your hand or signify by saying aye. Perfect.
Aye.
Okay. The meeting is adjourned, and we'll talk to everyone soon. Thank you very much for all this work. Talk to you.
Thank you, everyone.
soon.
Have a great day.
Good luck.
Bye-bye.